Welcome in, along with Sam Monson. I'm Steve Palazzolo. Today, breaking down the Antonio Brown trade. Sam, he's going from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Oakland Raiders, a third and a fifth round pick. We'll discuss the compensation in a minute, but what does this immediately mean for the Oakland Raiders?
Well, the Raiders get a receiver that has been arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL for the past few years. For them, it should be a massive upgrade. Even when you consider that they shipped off Amari Cooper to rebuild this project, I think it should present them with a tremendously talented receiver. My question, though, is what happens to Antonio Brown when you remove Ben Roethlisberger from the equation? Because we've seen that a lot in the past. Ben Roethlisberger has been, a relatively injury-prone quarterback because of his playing style, and every single time he has gone out of the lineup, it has been really bad for Antonio Brown. I think he is more quarterback dependent than guys like Julio Jones, than Josh Gordon, than these physical freak wide receivers.
But the drop-off from Ben Roethlisberger is the drop-offs to Charlie Batch, Byron Leftwich, Landry Jones, Michael Vick.
Yep.
I mean, those are the guys we're talking about. Derek Carr is far better than all of the players that Antonio Brown had throwing him the ball when Big Ben was hurt. So there's definitely a drop-off from Roethlisberger to Carr. I'm less worried about Antonio Brown from a volume standpoint. I think it's more the on-field chemistry that Roethlisberger and Brown had. Brown is a very good route runner, but they had, Big Ben likes to improvise. Antonio Brown also liked to improvise. And not just the scramble drill, just within the middle of routes, seeing the field the same exact way. That's the place where I think Antonio Brown misses out on 10, maybe 15, 20 catches in a year and maybe some big plays because Brown and Big Ben had that chemistry. But I still think Derek Carr, he has enough arm to get the ball down the field to Antonio Brown if they're more aggressive, and he can get the ball to him accurately at all levels.
He definitely has enough arm to do it, but the question is, does he have enough cojones, Steve, to do it?
Aggressiveness?
Exactly.
Sam?
Does he have the guts to throw the ball down the field in a way Roethlisberger does? Because in Carr's career, we really haven't seen that. We've seen it maybe for that 1 year where he threatened that he was going to become the next great quarterback, and then he broke his ankle, the offensive line disintegrated around him, and Carr has never been the same guy since. And we've seen him neuter a guy like Amari Cooper. Cooper goes to Dallas, completely different player, because suddenly his quarterback is willing to take those chances. If Carr is not willing to take those chances, you're not going to see the same Antonio Brown.
If you look at Antonio Brown's career, pretty much elite play across the board. Last year, 79.3 grade was the lowest of his career. But does that really matter? He only dropped one pass, and when you look at what happened last year, Big Ben missed him a ton. He had the most inaccurate passes thrown his way. Perhaps a lot were forced into tight coverage. Maybe Antonio Brown's not getting open quite as efficiently as he was in the past. But when you talk about, him against the other receivers in the NFL, he still has plenty to offer. I think the question now is, does he have enough to offer to justify the fact that they're making him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL?
Yeah, again, I think Antonio Brown is worth that. I just worry about whether the quarterback situation is going to give him the ability to show that. And even last year with Ben Roethlisberger, I think that backs up my point, because Roethlisberger wasn't the same guy he's been in previous seasons. Consequently, Antonio Brown doesn't grade anything like as well as he did in the past when Roethlisberger was at his best. And if you look at the career numbers, when Roethlisberger is the guy throwing the ball, the passer rating Antonio Brown was bringing in is 105. When Roethlisberger wasn't the guy throwing the ball in Pittsburgh, that pass rating dropped to 62. That is a huge drop-off. Now, Carr is better than those backups.
Yes, because of the backups.
But he is a lot worse than Ben Roethlisberger.
And even in a down season, though, Antonio Brown, 104 catches, almost 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. When you have a Derek Carr at quarterback, call him a mid-tier quarterback. There's a big chunk of guys that rank between 8th and 25th in quarterback rankings any given year. You have to load them up with playmakers, and Antonio Brown is certainly that. When you look at Oakland from a macro view, the fact that they've given up Khalil Mack, Amari Cooper for a whole bunch of draft picks, bringing back Antonio Brown, are they on the right track to rebuilding, or was this a curious move where they felt like they were just going with the youth movement?
I mean, I think the overall strategy was this big rebuild. They've kept those 3 first-round draft picks intact. They still have the ability to do that. This strikes me as a shiny object dangled in front of them that they just couldn't turn down. They're still looking to rebuild. Maybe those draft picks are going towards a Kyler Murray in the draft. That's what they're targeting, building for the future. But for a 3rd and a 5th round pick for Antonio Brown, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, they just couldn't turn it down.
I don't think that's bad at all. Third and a fifth is absolutely worth it. And then when you look at it from the Steelers' point of view, they really didn't have
any leverage.
At all. Much of an option. The fact that they even got a third and a fifth after Antonio Brown, everybody knew he was on the trading block. Hey, they did as well as they could. Have to reload at wide receiver. So there you go. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers, Oakland Raiders trade. Antonio Brown moving on to Oakland.